The rain-slick streets of Barcelona blurred into a watercolor of neon and shadow as I stumbled home, my heart pounding like a flamenco drum in my chest. Ivy's lips had crashed into mine just moments ago. Soft, urgent, tasting of sangria and secrets she'd sworn she'd never share. And now she was pulling away, her blue eyes wide with the terror of what we'd just unleashed. Isla, I didn't mean, she stammered. But the words dissolved into the downpour, leaving me drenched not just in water, but in the wreckage of every boundary we'd pretended to respect. I never believed in those roommate horror stories, the ones where shared walls turn into echo chambers of resentment, or worse, unspoken desires that fester like untreated wounds. But that was before Ivy Hayes crashed into my life like a rogue wave off the Costa Brava, upending everything I thought I knew about straight lines and safe distances. It was late summer in Barcelona, the kind of heat that clings to your skin like a lover's regret. And I'd just signed the lease on a cramped but charming two-bedroom in the Elborn district. The apartment was a relic. Exposed brick walls scarred by centuries, a tiny balcony overlooking a labyrinth of narrow alleys where laundry fluttered like prayer flags, and a kitchen so small you had to choreograph your movements to avoid accidental touches. I'd moved here on a whim, chasing the ghosts of my failed art career back in Brooklyn. At 28, with a portfolio of unsold canvases and a string of heartbreaks that could fill a gallery, Spain felt like reinvention. Or escape. Take your pick. The ad for a roommate had been straightforward. Artistic soul sought for shared flat in historic Elborn. No drama, no pets, must love tapas and tolerate my impeccable taste in indie playlists. I'd posted it on an expat Facebook group, hoping for someone low-key. A fellow American adrift in this Mediterranean dream. Maybe a writer nursing a novel or a teacher grading papers under olive trees. What I got was Ivy. She showed up on a Thursday afternoon, wheeling a battered suitcase that looked like it had survived a war. Her blonde hair tied back in a messy ponytail that screamed, "I just stepped off a transatlantic flight." She was 26, fresh out of a journalism program at NYU, with the kind of effortless California glow that made you wonder if she'd been dipped in honey. Blue eyes sharp as sea glass, freckles dusting her nose like cinnamon, and a smile that could disarm a border guard. "Hey, I'm Ivy," she'd said, extending a hand that was warm and slightly callous from God knows what guitar strings, typewriter keys, your potential chaos partner. We clicked over the tour. She laughed at the wobbly kitchen table, admired the balcony view with genuine awe, and didn't bat an eye when I mentioned my lesbian artist vibes. In fact, she high-fived me. Girl, same energy. Except I'm straight as an arrow, but hey, representation matters. It was disarming, that casual allyship, like she'd read the script on how to be the perfect platonic roommate. No weird vibes, no prying questions about my exes. Just two Americans carving out a slice of La Vida Loca, in a city that pulsed with history and heat. The first weeks were a blur of adjustment. Mornings started with the screech of the metro rattling beneath our building, and we'd collide in the kitchen over espresso and pan con tomate, trading stories like currency. Ivy was here on a freelance gig, pitching travel pieces to glossy mags back home, profiles on hidden beaches, odes to gaudy whimsy. She dragged me out to La Rambla at dawn, her notebook in hand, scribbling furiously while I sketched the street performers' contorted faces. "You're a genius, Isla," she'd say, peering over my shoulder, her breath warm against my ear. I'd shrug it off, but inside it bloomed. A quiet validation I'd been starving for since my last gallery rejection. Evenings were for the balcony, where we'd crack open bottles of Estrella and watch the sun bleed orange into the sea. Ivy had this laugh, low and throaty, that cut through the city's hum like a saxophone solo. She'd talk about her ex-boyfriend back in LA. A surfer dude named Chad. God, the name alone made me snort. How he'd ghosted her after she chose Spain over his beach bonfires. "Straight guys are trash," she'd declare, clinking her bottle against mine. "Present company excluded, obviously." I'd nod, hiding the pang that came with her emphasis on straight. Because yeah, I was gay as the day is long, out since high school in a small Ohio town where coming out meant trading whispers for isolation. But with Ivy it didn't matter. She was safe. She was straight. Or so I thought. The shift happened subtly, like the tide creeping in at twilight. It started with the small things. Her borrowing my silk scarves to dress up her outfits, twirling in front of the mirror with a grin that lingered too long. Or the way she'd flop onto my bed after a late night out, her head on my pillow, complaining about some bar pickup who'd bored her to tears. "Why can't anyone be as real as you, Isla?" she'd murmur, her fingers absent-mindedly tracing the hem of my shirt. I'd freeze, heart skittering, and change the subject to the weather or the neighbor's yapping chihuahua. One night, after a particularly grueling deadline, I'd sold a piece to a local cafe, my first win in months. We celebrated with paella at a hole-in-the-wall off Passaic del Born. The wine flowed rich and ruby, and Ivy's cheeks flushed pink as she leaned across the table, her eyes catching the candlelight. "To us," she toasted, her voice husky. The dynamic duo nobody saw coming. Our glasses touched, and for a split second, her gaze dipped to my lips. I blinked it away, blaming the Tempranillo. But denial is a fragile dam, and cracks formed fast. A week later, we hiked up to Park Güell on a whim, the mosaic dragons gleaming under the relentless sun. Ivy slipped on the uneven path, and I caught her, arms around her waist, her body pressing back into mine for balance. She didn't pull away immediately. Instead, she turned her head, our faces inches apart, her breath mingling with the scent of pine and her vanilla shampoo. "My hero," she whispered, and there was something in her eyes, curiosity, hunger. It vanished as quick as it came, replaced by her usual banter. But that night, alone in my room, I replayed it on loop, my skin tingling where her hip had brushed mine. I tried to talk myself down. "She's straight, Isla. I not admire." But the universe, that cruel Catalan architect, had other plans. It was a stormy Friday, the kind where thunder rolls in from the Pyrenees like an omen. I'd spent the day in my makeshift studio, a corner of the living room piled with easels, battling a canvas that refused to yield. Ivy burst through the door soaked to the bone, her sundress plastered to her like a second skin, hair dripping rivulets down her neck. "The shoot got rained out," she groaned, kicking off her sandals. "Pour me something strong." We ended up on the balcony despite the downpour, huddled under a shared blanket that smelled faintly of her citrus lotion. The city lights smeared through the sheets of rain, and conversation turned confessional. She admitted the freelance life was lonelier than she'd imagined. No safety net, just the ache of what-ifs. I shared about my mom back home, how her silence after my coming out still echoed louder than any rejection letter. "You deserve someone who sees you," Ivy said softly, her hand finding mine under the blanket. Her thumb stroked my knuckles, a gesture so tender it stole my breath. The thunder cracked then, sharp and biblical, and in that electric pause she leaned in. No warning, no hesitation, just her lips on mine, tentative at first, then deepening with a fervor that tasted of desperation and discovery. My world tilted. I kissed her back, hands threading into her wet hair, the rain a curtain sealing us from reality. It was fire and flood, everything I'd imagined in stolen glances but never dared hope for. She broke it first, gasping, eyes wild. "Isla, I didn't mean." The words hung unfinished as lightning forked the sky. And just like that, the line we'd towed so carefully shattered, leaving us adrift in the storm we'd summoned. The morning after tasted like ash and awkward silences, the kind that settle into your bones like Mediterranean fog. I woke to the patter of rain against the window panes, my lips still swollen from the memory of hers, and for a heartbeat, I let myself believe it had been a dream, a vivid wine-fueled hallucination born of too many balcony confessions. But then I heard her in the kitchen, the clink of mugs, the hiss of the espresso machine, and that soft hum she did when she was nervous, a half-tune from some Fleetwood Mac song. I padded out in my oversized sleep shirt, hair a riot of curls bracing for the fallout. Ivy was at the counter, back to me, pouring coffee with the precision of someone defusing a bomb. She turned and our eyes met, hers shadowed, mine guarded, and the air thickened with everything unsaid. "Hey," she ventured, sliding a mug my way. "Black, 2 sugars, just how I liked it. Normalcy as armor." "Hey." I took it, our fingers brushing, and the spark jumped again, undeniable. We sipped in tandem, the steam curling between us like a question mark. Finally she cracked. "Last night. That was a mistake." The word slipped out sharper than I intended, laced with the hurt I'd buried overnight. She flinched, setting her mug down with a porcelain clink. "No. God no. It was intense. Real. But I'm not. You know." Straight as an arrow, her earlier words echoed mockingly. She ran a hand through her drying hair, leaving it tousled. I've never done anything like that. With anyone. But with you it felt right. Scary, right? I leaned against the counter, arms crossed to hold myself together. Part of me wanted to bolt, to grab my sketchbook and lose myself in charcoal lines until the confusion faded. But another part, the one that had spent years building walls against rejection, hungered for this, vulnerability raw and unfiltered. So what now, Ivy? We pretend it didn't happen? Go back to high fives and playlists. She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the rain on her skin, mingled with that vanilla warmth. I don't want to pretend. I just need time to figure this out. Us. Her hand hovered near my arm, then dropped. Can we try? Slowly. Slowly. The word was a lifeline and I grasped it. What followed was a tentative dance, a courtship disguised as coexistence. We'd cooked dinner together, her chopping onions with theatrical flair, me stirring paella while stealing glances at the curve of her neck. Conversations deepened, veering into territories we'd skirted before. Her childhood in San Diego, surfing at dawn to outrun her parents' divorce. My first crush on a theater girl in college, the sting of unrequited poetry. Laughter wove through it all, but so did touches, lingering hugs at the door after her late returns, her head on my shoulder during movie nights on the sagging couch. Barcelona conspired with us, its streets a canvas for our unfolding story. We wandered the Barri Gothic at dusk, fingers brushing as we traced the labyrinthine alleys, stopping for gelato at a corner shop where she'd feed me a spoonful of stracciatella, her eyes daring me to taste the flirtation. On Montjuic Hill, under a canopy of stars, we shared a blanket picnic, her telling ghost stories of the castle's sieges while I drew her profile in the dirt with a stick, strong jaw, soft lips, a question mark for an eye. The first real kiss after the storm came unbidden. In the hushed aisles of the Picasso Museum. We'd gone for inspiration, me for my art, her for a piece on the city's creative pulse. Standing before Guernica, its fractured form screaming silent agony, she whispered, "It's like us, isn't it? Broken but beautiful." Her hand slipped into mine, and when she turned, the pull was magnetic. Our lips met softly, museum-goers be damned, a promise sealed amid the master's chaos. From there it bloomed. Stolen moments in hidden plazas, where she'd trace my collarbone with feather-light fingers, breath hitching as I whispered her name. Nights tangled in sheets, not rushing but exploring. The arch of her back under my palms, the way she sighed my name like a prayer. It was romantic, reverent, a slow unraveling of selves. Ivy confessed her curiosities in the dark. Late-night scrolls through queer-lit dreams she dismissed as phases. "You're waking something in me, Isla," she'd say, vulnerability cracking her voice. And I'd hold her, heart swelling, whispering that she was enough, always had been. But romance in a foreign city is a fragile export, and shadows loomed. Ivy's freelance gigs intensified. She'd vanish for days to Andalusia or the Basque Country, returning with sun-kissed skin and stories that felt edged with distance. "Met this photographer in Seville," she'd say casually over breakfast, scrolling her phone. "Cool guy. Might collab." I'd nod, ignoring the twist in my gut, chalking it up to jealousy I had no right to feel. After all, she was still figuring it out, and I was the one who'd promised patience. The betrayal crept in like mist off the harbor. It was mid-October, the air turning crisp with autumn's bite, when I found the note. I'd come home early from a gallery submission, canvas tubes under my arm, buoyed by a rare email of interest. The apartment was empty, or so I thought. Ivy's door was ajar, and from the hall, I heard her voice, low and laughing on the phone. "Yeah, last night was unexpected, but fun. Don't tell anyone, okay? It's complicated." My stomach dropped. I shouldn't have listened, but feet carried me closer, the floorboards creaking like accusations. "No, he's great. Persistent. And straight, which is safe, you know." A pause, her chuckle brittle. "Isla's amazing, but this? It's different. I need normal right now." Normal. The word was a gut punch. I backed away, retreating to the balcony, the city sprawling indifferent below. When she emerged minutes later, makeup fresh, dress hugging her curves, she froze at the sight of me. "Isla? You're home early." "Overheard you," I said flatly, arms wrapped around myself against the chill. "Enjoy your normal." Her face crumpled, color draining. It's not God, it's nothing. Just drinks with that photographer from Seville. He was in town, insisted. Got flirty, but I stopped it. I swear. Flirty enough to call him fun? The hurt spilled out, hot and unfiltered. While I'm here, waiting for you to figure us out? She reached for me, but I stepped back. Please, Isla. I'm scared. This us, it's everything, but it's new. Terrifying. What if I mess it up? What if I'm not enough for you? The vulnerability pierced me, but so did the echo of her words on the phone. You think I'm the one who needs convincing? I've been all in since that first kiss. But if you need safe and straight, then go. I won't beg. She left that night, door clicking shut like a period at the end of a sentence. The apartment echoed with her absence, my sketches mocking me from the walls. Portraits of her I'd never shown. Eyes alive with the love I'd dared to paint. Days blurred into a haze. I threw myself into work, haunting cafes with my laptop, pitching illustrations to anyone who'd bite. Barcelona, once a lover's playground, turned indifferent witness. Friends from the expat group noticed, sympathetic coffees, vague advice about giving her space. But space was a void, and in it, doubt festered. Had I pushed too hard? Idealized too much? Or was this the inevitable crash of mismatched hearts? Ivy returned a week later, knocking tentatively, a bottle of my favorite Rioja in hand. Rain streaked the windows again, a cruel reprise. Can we talk? She asked, voice small through the crack in the door. I let her in, steeling myself. We sat on the balcony, the downpour a merciful veil. She poured, hands shaking. I was an idiot. Running scared. That night. It was a rebound, a stupid grasp at what I knew. But it meant nothing. You do. Tears mixed with rain on her cheeks. I love you, Isla. Not as a roommate, not as an experiment. For real. If you'll have me. The words unlocked something in me, relief, rage, longing. I pulled her close, our sobs mingling with the storm. Forgiveness wasn't clean, it was messy, earned in whispers and renewed promises. We rebuilt brick by tentative brick. Date nights at seaside tavernas, her hand in mine through crowded markets. Nights where words failed and bodies spoke truths. For a while it felt unbreakable. Ivy even wrote a piece. A veiled essay on unexpected horizons, submitted to a queer mag under a pseudonym. It got picked up, and we celebrated with churros at dawn, her pride shining brighter than the rising sun. But betrayal's shadow lingers, and Barcelona's winds carried whispers of another storm. Winter wrapped Barcelona in a shawl of mist and mystery, the Gothic spires piercing low clouds like unanswered prayers. Our reconciliation had stitched us back together, threads of trust rewoven with care. But scars pull when you stretch too far. Ivy and I navigated it like tightrope walkers, her freelance deadlines pulling her south to Valencia for features on saffron harvests. My art gaining traction with a local collective that wanted my American Exile series for their winter show. We'd text feverishly during separations. Her photos of sun-drenched orchards captioned, "Missing your light." My voice notes sketching out dreams of a shared studio by the sea. The idol cracked on All Saints' Day, when the city bloomed with marigolds and marzipan skeletons, a bittersweet nod to the dead. Ivy had returned from a week in Madrid, buzzing with energy, her suitcase spilling silk scarves and scribbled notebooks. Big break, she announced over merienda, eyes alight. Met an editor from The Atlantic. They're interested in a piece on expat reinvention. Wants my take on finding yourself abroad. Interview next week in the city. Pride swelled in me, chasing away the old ghosts. That's huge, Ives. Champagne tonight. We did, bubbles fizzing under the chandeliers of a tiny kava bar in the Ravel, her laughter drawing stares from tattooed locals. Under the table, her foot hooked mine, a secret anchor. Later, tangled in bed, she traced my tattoos, a constellation of stars across my ribs, and whispered, "You're my North Isla. Always." The interview loomed like a beacon, and Ivy prepped with the fervor of a prize fighter. Mornings dissolved into mock cunas over cortados, her pacing the living room in yoga pants and my stolen flannel, voice pitching stories of resilience and revelation. I played devil's advocate, challenging her angles, but mostly I basked in her glow. The way success sharpened her edges made her bold. "This could change everything," she'd say, pulling me into hugs that lingered. "For us." The night before, nerves frayed her. We walked the waterfront, the Mediterranean a black mirror under sodium lamps, waves lapping like hesitant confessions. What if they see through me? She fretted, arm linked in mine. The straight girl playing at Queer Awakening? What if it's all a pose? I stopped her under the W Hotel's sail-like sail, framing her face in the neon spill. It's not a pose. It's you brave messy mine. Own it. Our kiss was salt-tanged fierce, a vow against the tide. She nailed it, of course. The call came mid-morning, her squeal echoing through the apartment like victory bells. They want it. With edits, but yes. We danced in the kitchen, bumping hips to an imaginary salsa, before tumbling onto the rug in a heap of limbs and laughter. That afternoon, to celebrate, she suggested a surprise. A drive to Montserrat, the jagged monastery mountains an hour's winding road away. The road was a ribbon of asphalt carving through cork oaks and terraced vines, the air crisp with pine and earth. Ivy drove our borrowed Fiat, windows down, her playlist blasting Joni Mitchell's laments. We arrived at dusk, the basilica's spires clawing the bruised sky, pilgrims' chants drifting on the wind. Hiking the paths hand in hand, we felt infinite, two souls etched against the stone saints. But infinity phrase. Back in Barcelona, the edits arrived, and with them a shadow. Ivy holed up for days, laptop glowing late into the night, her brow furrowed over redline drafts. They're pushing for more personal risk, she explained one evening, rubbing her temples. Want details on the romantic pivot? It's exposing. I nodded, stirring gazpacho in the kitchen. Like what? Us. Something like that. She joined me, chopping cucumbers with distracted vigor. Anonymized, of course, but intimate. The piece dropped online 2 weeks later. A Sunday exclusive that rippled through our circles like a stone in the harbor. I read it curled on the balcony, coffee cooling untouched. From straight lines to curved horizons, an expat's reckoning. It was lyrical, raw, Ivy's voice singing of isolation, of a roommate's quiet strength cracking open her world. Passages that echoed our nights. Her touch was the first map I'd followed without fear, charting territories I'd long denied. My heart ached with recognition, pride mingling with the vulnerability of being rendered in ink. Friends texted kudos. My collective even referenced it in a group chat, calling it inspo for the soul. Ivy beamed over dinner at our favorite vermuteria, toasting to the woman who made it possible. But beneath the glow, unease stirred. The piece was a confession, yes, but also a beacon, drawing eyes, questions, judgments. The conflict ignited at the launch party, a swanky affair in a Gracia gallery with exposed beams and craft cocktails. Ivy's editor had flown in, a silver-haired dynamo named Elena, and the room buzzed with journos and creatives, air thick with perfume and ambition. I wore a black jumpsuit that hugged my curves, curls tamed into waves, feeling every bit the artist's arm candy. Ivy, in emerald silk that matched her eyes, clung to me like a talisman. Elena cornered us early, martini in hand. Brava, Ivy. That pivot? Gutsy. Who's the muse? Her gaze flicked to me, appraising. Ivy's laugh was a touch too bright. A story for another time. Let's just say she's family now. The night wore on, toasts flowing, but I caught the whispers, expats murmuring about the straight girl's queer glow-up, sidelong glances at us like we were Exhibit A. It grated, that reduction, but I swallowed it for Ivy's sake, her hand warm in mine. Then came Marcus. He materialized like a plot twist, tall and tousled, an American photojournalist with a jawline for billboards and a camera slung over his shoulder. Ivy, the piece killer, he boomed, pulling her into a hug that lingered. She'd mentioned him in passing, old NYU contact, collab on a Madrid shoot. But here, under the gallery's halos, his arm stayed around her waist, proprietary. They chatted, heads close over shared anecdotes, his laugh booming at her quips. I nursed a gin fizz at the bar, sketching their silhouettes on a napkin. His hand on her elbow, her tilt toward him. When she glanced my way apologetic, I forced a smile. But the seed of doubt sprouted thorns. Later, in the cab home, buzzed and buoyant, she raved about the night. Elena's thrilled. Marcus says he can hook me up with Nat Geo contacts. Her excitement was infectious but edged. You okay? You seemed quiet. Fine, I lied, staring out at the blurring Passaic de Gracia. Just processing the spotlight. She squeezed my thigh, reassuring. It's our win, babe. But win's sour. The next morning, hungover and hollow, I woke to her phone buzzing incessantly. Marcus, texting about grabbing coffee to brainstorm that feature. She dismissed it with a yawn, professional. But the ease gnawed at me. What followed was a slow erosion. Conflict bubbling like overboiled fedua. Ivy's schedule exploded. Meetings with Elena, shoots with Marcus, late nights networking, that left her smelling of his cologne, woody, invasive. I'd wait up sketching alone, the apartment's warmth cooling to drafty isolation. Arguments simmered, me accusing her of drifting, her snapping back about ambition's cost. This is my career, Isla. You get it. Your art's your baby too. I do get it, I'd counter, voice cracking. But I'm not a footnote in your pivot. Am I? Her silence was the loudest betrayal. The climax crashed on a February eve, rain lashing the windows like judgment. I'd sold 3 pieces to a Berlin buyer, my breakthrough, and came home buoyant, bouquet of wildflowers in hand. The apartment was dark, but voices filtered from her room. Low, intimate, punctuated by laughter. I pushed the door open and there they were. Marcus on her bed, shirt unbuttoned, her leaning into him, lips brushing his neck. The flowers hit the floor, petals scattering like shrapnel. Isla. Ivy bolted up, face ashen. Marcus smirked, unrepentant. Shit timing. Get out, I whispered, then roared it, the sound tearing from my gut. He slunk away, but Ivy stayed, pleading. It was nothing, a stupid mistake. He's leaving tomorrow. Please. Nothing. I laughed, bitter. Like your flirty night in Seville? Or the phone call I overheard? How many mistakes before it's a pattern, Ivy? Tears streamed down her face, mascara rivers. I'm lost, okay? The piece made me a target, people staring, questioning. Marcus. He doesn't see the mess. He's easy. Safe. Safe, I echoed, the word a dirge. That's what you said last time. But I'm the one who held you through the storms. Who loved you without maps. She reached for me, but I recoiled. I love you. God, Isla, Ido. This us is real. He's not. Then why? The question hung raw. Fear, she admitted, crumbling to the floor. Of what we could be. Of losing myself in it. The room spun, memories flashing. Our first kiss in the rain, Montserrat stars, her whispers in the dark. Betrayal wasn't just the act. It was the erosion of trust, the slow poison of doubt. You already have, I said softly, grabbing my coat. You've lost us. I fled into the night, Barcelona's alleys swallowing me whole. Rain washing away the last of my illusions. The weeks that followed were a descent into Barcelona's underbelly. The city's glamour peeling back to reveal its grit. I crashed with a painter friend from the collective, Sophia, in her bohemian flat in Poblenou. Walls slathered in murals, the sea's roar a constant lullaby. My phone stayed silent at first, Ivy's texts piling like unanswered prayers. I'm sorry. Come home. I need you. I read them in the dead of night, thumb hovering over reply, but pride or pain held me back. Instead, I poured it into canvas. Fractured portraits of golden hair and blue eyes, splintered by black strokes of rage and regret. Sophia became my anchor, her no-nonsense Catalan fire cutting through my fog. Over black coffee and cigs on her fire escape, she'd prod. Amor, she's human. Messy. But you? You're a storm. Don't let her dim you. Her words echoed my mom's old letters, tucked in a drawer back home. Sparse missives of proud but distant love. I'd come out here chasing freedom, but freedom tasted like solitude now, sharp as the salt air. The gallery show loomed, my exile series the centerpiece. 10 pieces chronicling displacement, desire, disillusion. Curators buzzed. Collectors circled. I threw myself into prep, varnishing frames till my hands blistered, channeling the ache into abstraction. Swirls of cerulean for longing, crimson gashes for betrayal. Ivy's piece, ironically, had opened doors for me too. Whispers of the muse followed, turning my work into a narrative. Tell your story, Sophia urged at the rehearsal dinner, clinking her vermouth. But don't let it end you. Opening night arrived under a canopy of stars. The gallery in El Roval pulsing with velvet ropes and violin strings. I wore crimson, bold, unapologetic, curls wild, Green eyes shadowed but steady. The crowd swelled. Expats in linen, locals in leather. Elena the editor holding court with her martini gleam. My pieces hung like confessions, and as guests murmured appreciations, raw, visceral. I felt seen not as Isla the heartbroken but Isla the creator. Then she appeared, a ghost in emerald silk, slipping through the throng like smoke. Ivy thinner, eyes hollowed by whatever hell she'd walked through alone. She hovered at the periphery, clutching a program, until our gazes locked across the room. The air-charged violin fading to a hum. I approached, heart a war drum. You came. Wouldn't miss it. Her voice cracked, gaze devouring the walls. They're us. Beautiful. Broken. Not broken, I corrected, chin lifting. Evolving. She nodded, tears brimming. I quit the Atlantic gig. Too many strings. Marcus. Gone. Blocked. It was a crutch, Isla, a way to run from how deep this goes. Pause, raw. From how much I need you. The crowd blurred. It was just us, suspended in the gallery's hush. Need isn't love, I said softly, the old hurt surfacing. And love isn't safe harbors. It's the storm. I know. She stepped closer, voice a whisper. I've been adrift without you. The apartment's a tomb, your sketches everywhere mocking me. I get it now, you weren't a phase. You're my horizon. Words I'd longed for, but timing is a cruel curator. Elena approached then, oblivious, air-kissing Ivy's cheeks. Darling, the piece was a hit. Sequel. Ivy demurred, polite deflection, but I saw the flicker, ambition's ghost. Later, outside under the gallery's awning, rain threatening again, we faced the reckoning. What do you want, Ivy? Truly. You, she breathed, hand trembling in mine. All of it, the mess, the art, the unknown. No more running. I searched her eyes, seeing the girl from that first suitcase day. Curious, brave, achingly human. Betrayal had carved us hollow, but hollows fill with forgiveness if you're willing. Then stay, I said, pulling her into the rain. But no more lines. We draw them together. Our kiss was a renaissance, tentative, then torrent, the downpour baptizing us anew. Not perfect, not without scars, but real. Humanistic in its flawed grace. Two women, remade by love's unyielding forge. Spring unfurled in Barcelona like a promised exhale. Azahar blossoms perfuming the air. Our balcony reborn as a studio where easels mingled with her typewriter. Ivy's writing shifted. Essays on queer joy co-authored with me, her byline beside my illustrations. We traveled light, weekends in Sitges, sketching beaches at dawn, her head on my lap as waves whispered approvals. Mom visited that June, awkward at first, Ohio stiffness clashing with Catalan ease, but over paella watching us, something softened in her eyes. You look happy, kiddo. It was absolution, small but seismic. We weren't from roommates to more in a tidy arc. It was chaos crescendo quietude. Betrayal taught us boundaries, fragility. Conflict, communication's power. In the end, it was humanistic triumph. Love not as fairy tale but as choice, daily, deliberate, deeply felt. And in the heart of Spain, two American souls found their way home, not to safety but to each other.